You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ip Man Trilogy podcast. Joining us today is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
Tell me the second you get a signal. I want to know who's on the other end of that thing.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow. Was that whistle weird?
And also joining us is Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork.
Yeah. That's not a cat. That's a flirkin.
And I am not your host, Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork. I know a renegade soldier when I see one. Never occurred to me that one might come from above.
Yeah. Welcome to another edition of the Ip Man Trilogy podcast. Yay.
Darren's back.
I'm back.
We missed you.
Y'all thought I was hosting.
It was a trick.
Sorry to disappoint you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the captain now. Yes, Disco has returned. I miss you all. I missed everyone.
Yeah, we missed you, man.
I missed our listeners too. Great to be back.
New Marvel movie. You can't miss a Marvel movie.
I cannot miss a Marvel movie. Let's jump right into it. Brian, how was your week in Dork?
Pretty good. Kind of light outside of Captain Marvel, but interesting because
Your last week in Dork was heavy.
Yeah, it actually was.
Yeah,
I did a lot of rewatches.
He's
though.
doing interval training. One heavy week, one light
It
week.
makes
There you
sense.
go. There
He's
you
back
go.
in the gym. Okay, I see how you're incorporating that into your week. Okay, I
Yeah,
got you.
I got to incorporate into every level of my life. No, but yeah, this week was a little light. So, we were doing our Game of Thrones recap, and I'm still working on the videos, but we are almost finished season 5,
Which has been fun. A lot of fun, by the way.
Rewatching those has been amazing. It's been a lot of fun.
New trailer.
Oh, jeez.
It's good.
You didn't watch it? You're not. He's done with
I don't need it.
He's the Unsullied now.
I know, right?
Brad did the trailer breakdown for FSR.
Not fun.
It was not fun for him.
Here's the thing about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I don't mean to totally sidetrack your
No.
Week in Dork, Brian. I apologize.
No.
I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I watch it every season. I get excited about it every season. But the moment that season ends, all that information leaves my head. And here I am trying to do the breakdown. And I'm like, that's Arya, right? Yeah. Oh, man. What's that person's name? I don't know. That guy from Resident Evil? So here I am doing the breakdown of Game of Thrones. And I'm like, Wikipedia. Teach me.
Wikipedia is your best friend.
I really needed you guys on speed dial.
I mean, in your defense, though, and we can. It's apparently abundantly clear during this rewatch. There is a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I remember when seasons would initially air, and I say this on our recaps. I haven't rewatched any of these since their initial airing, so all of this is new to me. So but I remember when it would initially air. Was a season would end, I'd go a year to the next season, and I'd still have to jog my because it's so dense. It's such a dense.
I
show.
spend so much time talking about Valerian steel, and then I realize, shit, no, she's holding a dragon blast dagger. Gotta rewrite this whole paragraph.
Yeah, you don't want to put that out there, man.
You will get fried.
Oh, I've seen those people who got fried. They're brutal.
Oh man,
Glad I caught that.
Yeah, definitely, Brad. You dodged that one. So, but yeah, we were talking about Ip Man because we know at Lost Weekend, which is coming right around the corner, there's a film that's going to be premiering called Master Z. I think it's the Legend of Ip Man or Ip Man Legacy. Ip Man Legacy. And so I know you gave me the trilogy Blu-ray for Christmas. You probably don't remember that.
Oh, I did.
Christmas 2 years ago.
So it's kind of just been sitting on my shelf. I was like, yeah, let me go because I love that trailer for that In My Legacy. I was like, oh man, okay. Michelle Yeoh, who I thought was done with action movies, but it's always good to see her.
You should see her on Star Trek Discovery. She's always kicking butt.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and pop in the first movie. So I actually watched that earlier today, and I quite enjoyed it. It's kind of a straightforward story. It was kind of funny because the beginning of the movie kind of starts out where you think the plot is basically people are challenging Master Ip, and there's these kind of outsiders that come into town. The town is Foshan, and they challenge They challenge Master Ip, and I'm like, okay, is this the story? Because this movie should be over in like 30 minutes. but then it kind of continues where some stuff happens with his family, and he has to take a job as like a coal miner and to support his family. And then the Japanese come in and they want to take some of the martial artists from the coal mines to fight some of their I guess their trainees. I can't remember exactly what it was, but then because like if they fight them and defeat them, then they'll give them rice. And so one of the other masters that was in Foshan was Master Lee. And the beginning of the film, Master Lee and Master Ip have like a little duel. And somebody sees it, and he says, "Like, don't tell anybody that you defeat me." And then it gets out, and then it's kind of embarrassing for him. But it seems like they're really good friends. So then something happens to Master Lin when he fights the Japanese. So then Master Ip goes, and then he fights. He gets into the dojo with like 10 of the Japanese fighters, and he's like, I'll fight 10 of them, and
bro. Donnie Yen is a monster.
That shit was crazy. I was not prepared for that. It was brutal, but it was pretty cool. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward story. I do like some of the dramatic moments between him and his wife and his child, where sometimes his wife kind of wants him to focus more on his family and not focus on the fighting. And then it's also kind of showing you the origins of him starting to teach the people of Foshan Wing Chun and stuff like that. So I thought it was a really, really good introduction to that character. And at the end, it kind of gives you kind of like a recap of his life, kind of leading to like, you know, him teaching Bruce Lee and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's cool. So yeah, I'll watch Ip Man 2 and 3.
Are you going to watch it before Lost Weekend?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do the same.
Yeah, since I have the Blu-ray, I'm gonna check those out because I mean I'm a big martial arts fan. I haven't really been watching a lot of martial arts films, and like it's kind of cool to kind of get back into it. And Donnie Yen has done so many movies.
How do you compare to his other characters that he plays as far as like his attitude, his bravado, and how he presents himself, the cockiness? Like, how did you take his more reserved approach? No, he's playing someone who's a very quiet and introspective.
But I get that from Donnie Yen in a lot of his roles. He kind of has that more reserved nature about it. Even if he's playing like more of those kind of like, you know, brash forward characters. There seemed to be a calmness about Donnie Yen in almost every role that he has. I mean, they show previews of some of his films. Like they had one called Special ID. They showed the preview for that.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, this dude has been doing movies. I don't know how old he is. He looks. I don't know. He must be drinking the same stuff Tom Cruise is drinking.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's close to 50. If he's not already in 50.
Oh, he's past 50.
Yeah, he's got to be.
First movie I ever saw of his was Iron Monkey, I think.
It's not a bad one. That's not a bad one.
Pretty good.
That may have been what,
that's
early
Wu-Ping.
90s?
Yeah. Like Miramax brought it over and did a dubbing of it, which the dubbing wasn't great.
And that edit of it is, I'm so upset that that's the one that they put out because the Hong Kong version of that movie is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I need to revisit one of those edits. I remember really liking it. And of course, Blade 2, he's the snowman.
Yeah. Can't forget that.
He's barely in it, but
and Shanghai Nights.
Oh yeah,
Nights. Yeah.
Well, Sammo Hung is in the second Ip Man, so you have to look forward to him and Donnie and have a do it. But for the fact that you said you found the relationship between he and his wife interesting. That's cool because that's the through line of the trilogy.
Oh, okay. Oh,
even when he's like in this one, he has the coal miner subplot.
Yeah.
The next one, there's another subplot, and in the third one, there's another one. But the through line is the growth, or what happens between him and his family in the trilogy.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that because we got Lost Weekend right around the corner.
Ooh, so excited! I'm dying to get to a Lost Weekend. I need the break.
Yes, indeed. I need that too. So, yeah, man, that's my weekend dork.
All right. Thank you. Lisa, wife dork.
Yes.
How was your weekend dork?
My weekend dork was great.
Yeah?
I'm saying that. I kind of had a light weekend dork.
Oh, okay.
My migraines these past 2 weeks have been, literally, out of control.
Tearing Lisa's brain apart.
I don't think I've had... in the last 14 days, including our last podcast, I don't think I've had one day without migraine symptoms, which totally sucks. But I listened to a bunch of great podcasts that kept me going. And today, Brad and I had the privilege of getting to see a two-part documentary that premiered at South by Southwest. I Love You, Now Die, The Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter. Okay. It is an HBO documentary about this, a kid committed suicide, and then going back through his texts, they came to the conclusion that his girlfriend convinced him to do it, and they were holding her liable.
This is recent.
Yeah. Just a year ago.
I know this case.
This is so recent that there are developments from February of this year included in this documentary. And when you first read through, the way that it was directed by Aaron Lee Carter, and the way that the text messages are kind of rolled out, because it's months and months of the text messages.
Of her trying to influence him to do it?
Yeah. No, just text messages between teenagers, between Michelle and
it was
Conrad, who is the kid.
Yeah. It's a relationship that is very much happening online and via text. They're actually having very little physical contact. They don't go to the same schools. They don't even live in the same towns.
Oh.
They attempt, on and off, trying to be in each other's presence, but because of their conflicting mental states and the fact that they are still teenagers, they would find excuses to not see each other. Really, the excitement of the relationship
is in the text.
And the way that this documentary is just so compelling. They really if the initial texts you see by Michelle to Conrad are, of course, ghastly.
Yeah.
Telling him, just do it, just get it over with. You're going to be happier that you did.
Yeah. Hang yourself, jump off a building, whatever. It doesn't matter. You just need to do it.
Right. And so you get the sense that, this boy is being bullied by his girlfriend.
So they present those text messages first in the document. Okay. And then they kind of go back.
And then they start kind of unraveling what kind of kid Conrad was, the kid who committed suicide, and the kind of child
that Michelle is.
And there are so many, just for starters, these are two children who are both have a history of mental illness, a history of self-harm, and
in some case
suicide attempts,
domestic violence.
Right. So these are two extremely troubled kids, and that's probably part of the reason why they are so attracted to each other. That that they have this kind of
bond
in common. And they're both taking SSRIs. Now, SSRIs are things like Prozac, Celexa, that they give for suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. But some of the side effects are suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. And there has been some observations that in some cases, taking an SSRI can increase the likelihood of suicide. And then, like, it goes to, like, well, initially, he had been talking to her about him wanting to end his life, and she was trying to tell him not to do it. And he would kind of, like, emotionally manipulate her, like, you can't tell anybody about this because, you know, I will never trust you if you tell anybody that I'm having these feelings. You're the only person that I can talk to. So there was a certain amount of emotional manipulation there. So those are just a few of the factors that a jury might consider when trying to put blame on this girl who for this other kid's suicide when she was nowhere near the situation. But she opted not to have a jury trial. She opted to just have one judge do the trial. So,
what kind of counsel did she have?
Well, I mean, I think that's the right play. And I think especially considering where the documentary goes and starts asking people on the street based on the knowledge that they're getting from the media, you know, they all think of her as crazy and evil and vindictive and vicious and a monster. And I think you put 12 people on a jury, they're all going to come away judging on emotion. And the idea is if you have a single judge result, the judge has to approach it without emotion and can only look at it on legal terms. That's what I would have done. I would have called for that. It doesn't work. Spoilers.
But, like, we've only grazed the surface of, like, the complications that the relationship between Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy.
It's incredibly
It's incredibly complicated, and they roll out the different layers of the case in a very compelling and
what way?
Yeah. So it's
there are a lot of bombs.
There are a lot of layers to this story, and I think that it's important when we talk about this online culture that kids are living, these fantasy lives that they're living online, interacting with people that they can impose any kind of fantasy on top of because they're just not present and they're just not there. And it seems like a slippery slope to me for someone to say, like, she is responsible for someone's death because of a text that she sent. And, like, there is one really...
Technically not a text is what it came down
to. Spoilers.
A conversation on the phone.
Yeah, but... You know, it's a text that she sent to her friend going like, I feel responsible for his death because I told him to do this and do this thing that we're keeping a secret. But anyway, I think that's major spoilers. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily major spoilers because this was major news just a year ago.
Right.
And actually, like you said, just months ago.
I was going to say, I just saw something in the news at work about a development. With that
right.
girl.
So what happened most recently is that she is serving a sentence.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think what's interesting about the documentary is it asks, what would this case have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Without all of these records. There's just a record between everything these two teenagers said to each other.
Yeah, it would have been a sad suicide.
It would have just been a dead kid in a car.
Right.
You know?
And the other thing is, what does the role of the media play in situations like this in creating narratives of, teenage girls, they have bewildering, enchanting powers that can manipulate young impressionable boys. That's a narrative that we have created in pop culture and actually just general culture.
And selling the story to sensationalize
Yeah, and it's such an interesting case. It's such a compelling case to an audience member that, well, now we're going to descend an army of reporters onto this courthouse and create our own little reality show. Here you go, Nancy Grace, let loose.
It was one moment in this film of such profound irony. So we now know she's serving a sentence. So she was convicted. So Michelle is walking to her sentencing hearing with her mother and her lawyer. And then there are protesters outside, and there's someone yelling at her, "Kill yourself. Kill yourself." And I was like, well, now, if Michelle then does kill herself, now, is this person standing on the sidewalk yelling at her liable for that?
You just said that she is in a court of law.
It's a really slippery slope. And I understand, like, where there is toxicity online, and now the bullying that a child might have experienced on the playground is now happening in this other place, and there are crippling repercussions to bullying. But can we convict someone for someone else's suicide because of words?
Yeah, I think another big takeaway that I took from the documentary is how narratives are formed in courtrooms and on TV and in documentaries, right?
Because there's this just a massive amount of information. And there will be a discussion with the director,
Aaron
Lee Carr, and also Jesse Barron, who is featured prominently in the documentary because he was a writer for Esquire, and he did a lot of research on his own, trying to get to the story that was not presented by the prosecution, because
also the defense
and also the defense, because the way that Aaron kind of explained it was the prosecutor is there to fulfill a thesis statement, and the thesis statement is Michelle sent these texts. And and her viciousness resulted in the death of Conrad Roy. And
remove her from the equation, and he's alive today.
Yes, that's what they're trying to prove. Beyond reasonable doubt. This kid who has already committed... attempted suicide 4 times before.
Prior to meeting her.
Yeah. Prior to meeting her. Okay. And so they are just pulling the texts that make her entirely unsympathetic, ignoring texts where she is discouraging him to kill himself, and then later expressing things that are a direct result of mental illness.
And because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of texts for the defense then to find the stuff to counter that is very difficult.
Right. And you think of, like, all of this blame is laid on this 17-year-old girl, right? And
I think she was 18.
No, she was 17 years old when he died.
Okay.
She was 18 during the trial.
No, she was 20 when she was convicted.
Math. But she was 17 years old.
She was young.
And they try... I'm not going to say everything that happens in the documentary, but you go, like, you're laying all of this responsibility on a 17-year-old child. What about the father who committed acts of domestic violence in front of him and to him? What about these depictions of suicide in TV shows that are intended for teenage consumption, when it is known that teenagers who have suicidal ideation are really susceptible to images of suicide in the media? Like, if she is responsible, then everybody should be serving time. Every single person, because there's just too many factors, and the fact of the matter is we could all just be doing better as people. We should be taking care of our mentally ill. A teenager should not be put in charge of their own mental health. That's really important. So, it's a really engaging conversation I think that we need to have. I think that this 2-part HBO documentary is exceptionally well put together. I think that it is still, to a certain degree, sensational, but I do think that they do a good job of presenting both sides. And I do think that someone could watch this film and come to either conclusion. Come to the conclusion that Michelle should be serving time and come to the conclusion that she should not be serving time. So I definitely recommend that. Another quick documentary that Brad and I also watched is one called The Sentence. It is about a mother of 3 girls. She is convicted of conspiracy to commit a crime because she was involved with a man who was a drug dealer. And years later, she had been married. She had started a whole new life, completely separate from her ex and completely separate from criminals. She's convicted. She's put into jail. She's sentenced for 15 years. And so the documentary is made by her brother, Rudy Valdez. Over the course of the 9 years she is in jail, as he fights and her family fights to get her clemency. And so over this time, her children are growing up. She is missing birthdays and dance recitals. And I think over the course of the film, through being in federal prison, she still does as best she can to be a good mom to her daughters, be an inspiration to her daughters. And I think it's just a really, really beautiful story of, and also tragic. I mean, she missed a lot of her daughter's life, but the fact that she found it in herself to continue to fight, her family found it in themselves to continue to advocate for her. And it's just a really beautiful story.
And that's on HBO
it's another
right now.
HBO documentary. So, yep, that's it.
All right. What do you got, B?
Continuing the South by Southwest train, I watched Tone Deaf, the new horror film. We'll call it a horror film. It's hard to define, I guess, by Ricky Bates Jr., the director of Trash Fire and Excision. It stars Amanda Crew and Robert Patrick. Amanda Crew is Olive. She has been recently let go from her job, and her relationship has ended in a rather miserable fashion, but probably a necessary fashion. And she's sort of adrift, and she doesn't know what she's going to do. And everyone's encouraging her to just take some time for you. Go to the country, find a solace out there, away from the daily drudgery. And she eventually succumbs to that advice and finds a country house to rent from Robert Patrick, who is not a millennial; he's a baby boomer, and he does not understand millennial ways. He doesn't get the Snapchats and the iPhones and their crybaby attitudes about the environment. And his wife has recently passed away, and he's really mad. And we meet him kneeling by his wife's grave, and he's talking to her and saying, people say the greatest tragedy is for you to outlive your child. And I just don't get that, because I would get rid of our brat so quick to spend 5 more minutes with you.
Damn.
And so that puts you in where his headspace is.
Yeah.
And, Olive is a millennial, and she thinks like the world is coming to hell because of what the baby boomers have done.
Yeah. And
it's about this confrontation of two different ideologies. And what's great is in that moment, you know what? I won't spoil it on the air, because the movie's just premiered at South by Southwest. But there is an element to the storytelling that Tone Deaf commits to that was surprising and elevated it beyond just a confrontation between baby boomers and millennials. And I also appreciated how it was not a one-sided attack on either. I think at the start of the film, when you begin with Olive's point of view, there's a lot of jokes taken at the expense of millennials and What are you doing, Lisa?
Sorry, I bumped it.
You got to put your phone on mute. It's still going.
I don't. Sorry.
And it's taking a lot of pot shots at millennial behavior.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this is some pretty low-hanging fruit. And then we're introduced to Robert Patrick, who's rather imbalanced as a human being. And it takes some pot shots at the baby boomers. And then, the film is off to its rip-roaring, goriest best when they truly confront each other in a horror film kind of way. At one point, somebody... Well, I guess I'm going to spoil this joke. No, not going to do it. It's still too fresh. It's just on the festival circuit. Who knows when it's going to come out? I would just encourage our listeners. I'm being very vague about the plot. Baby boomers versus millennials. Robert Patrick at his best. I mean, he is so good. And I don't think I've quite seen a performance like this from Robert Patrick. And I had the opportunity to interview Ricky Bates Jr., just like we interviewed Aaron Lee Carr and Jesse Barron for the I Love You Now Die. And I asked, how do you get to Robert Patrick for this character? And he said, well, to be honest, I'm just a massive fan of the X-Files and that last season of the X-Files that everyone trashes on because David Duchovny left. And he thought, you know what? Special Agent Doggett by Robert Patrick, that's an agent. He needs more love. And that was his initial reasoning for casting him in Tone Deaf. And damn, is he good in it. He's a lot of fun. So yeah, Tone Deaf, that's my highest recommendation. Keep a lookout for that. I guess that's it for my weekend.
No comics?
I've been reading a lot of Superman comics this week. I had the opportunity to interview Brian Michael Bendis, like we mentioned last week, talking about Into the Spider-Verse. That was a great chat. And it finally encouraged me to pick up his Man of Steel book and check that out. And I'm enjoying it, and it's very Bendis-y. It's sort of distracting when the voice you've been hearing coming out of the mouths of Avengers and Spider-Man and whatnot suddenly is coming out of Lois and Clark. It's a little off-putting at first, but I like where he's going. I'm only just starting it. I've read Man of Steel. I need to read his actual Superman run and Action Comics run, and I'm looking forward to doing that. But to be honest, I was loving what Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason were doing on Superman. I think that they get that character better in a modern context than anybody else has since Grant Morrison. And that's big words coming from an Ip Man dork. And I know Darren wouldn't take that lightly. But they really get to the idea of Superman as a symbol of hope and something for supporting characters to aspire towards. And Man of Steel very much is about introducing a new threat that could take on a character like Superman. There's a subplot going on involving arsons that are occurring throughout Metropolis, and Superman doesn't know who's committing these acts. And it's really frustrating him that he can't solve this very basic crime. But he's distracted by this giant doomsday-like beast landing in Metropolis and going, I'm going to blow up Earth because we got to purge all Kryptonians from the universe. And you're the last surviving Kryptonian, and I need to get rid of you. And that story is just not as interesting. And not as interesting as what Gleason and Tomasi were doing on Superman. But I am enjoying Bendis on Superman. It's a trip. So yeah, that's my weekend dork.
All right. For my weekend dork, well, the previous week that I missed out on, so not this past weekend, but the weekend prior, I caught an advanced screening of Furie, this Vietnamese action film starring Veronica Ngo. I'm going to probably butcher her name. And this, from my understanding, this movie is will be showing at Lost Weekend in a few weeks. And I'm curious to see that with that particular audience. I enjoyed the film. It's fine. It's basically she used to be involved in the gangster lifestyle in Vietnam, and she was an enforcer of sorts. She became pregnant and decided to leave that life, move out to the country, and raise her daughter. But in doing that, she found it hard to make a living. So she used her experience as an enforcer to become a what do you call it? A debt collector of sorts. So if you owed the bad people in town money,
like a loan shark or something.
Yeah,
like that?
she would come see you to collect the money. And but she, would still try to maintain a low profile and provide for her daughter. Her daughter at this point in the film is preteen age, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, the story is her Furie's past comes back to. I don't even know if that's her name in the film. Her past comes back to haunt her of sorts. Her daughter gets kidnapped, and then it turns to like Taken in Vietnam, right? So she's just going to go after the people who kidnapped her daughter in this human trafficking ring. But what I found compelling about it is that while it does have action in the film, a large part of the story, the main part of the story, is while she is going through different people that she meets to eventually get to her daughter, if she's not physically confronting someone, she is emotionally and mentally confronting the fact that she has been a less than ideal parent and and not present enough parent for her daughter. So she's feeling the guilt of, maybe things would have been different. Maybe this would never have happened had I not led the life that I did or been the person that I was to my daughter. So the first 20 minutes of that film really establish the relationship or lack thereof with her daughter. And then in the beginning of the second act is when her daughter gets taken. And then that's when she has to find out who did it and why. And in the third final act is basically like there's a large set piece. There's this train in one of the cargo holds is a bunch of kids who have been taken for their organ harvesting and human trafficking and shit like that. But throughout each of those acts, like I said, if she's not physically confronting someone, she is, whether she goes to her brother for help, who is estranged, and because she chose to live a particular life, she just forgot her family, and so now out of the blue she wants to pop up and ask her brother for help to find her daughter. And the conversation with him is basically you've been away all these years living this particular type of lifestyle, and now you have the nerve to come in to my home when he has a pregnant wife there, he's living peacefully, and you want to upend everything because you made a mistake and your life's blowing up in your face because of your choices. So she's continually having to confront like who she was, and so I found that interesting. But my main takeaway from this movie, even though like I thought as a whole it was fine, it was okay, Veronica Nyo, that woman can sell a fucking punch. Oh my God. I was just astonished like every time like she fought somebody in that film. She's not a large woman in stature or by any means. She's actually the woman, and Brian pointed this out to me. She's actually the woman in the Last Jedi, her sister, who in the opening of that attack, the one that has to press the button and release the bombs. That's her. She's a monster in this film, man. I was knocked on my ass. I was surprised. I was extremely surprised by her physical prowess in the fights, and a lot of it has to do with the choreography. But outside of that, just if she's just throwing a punch, like even though she's smaller, just the way she sells that punch, like I believe that when she hit that guy, it hurt. And even if she is not as big as that guy, when she kicks a guy, you believe like it sent him flying. And she's great. She is the standout in that film, which rightfully she should be. She's the star. And then that last act, once she boards that train, it's just bliss, like action movie bliss. She is great. Like she needs to be in more. I want to see her in more like action films. But yeah, I enjoy that. And
I've got her action figure right over there.
Do you?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Rose and her sister.
I want her
Why can't
action
I remember
figure
the
now.
sister's name?
I'm sorry, I don't. But I do remember her in The Last Jedi, and I don't remember her in this movie.
Paige, that's it. Thank you, Brian.
Paige is amazing. I did also, speaking of advanced screenings, today, like right before I got over here, I got to see an advanced screening of Matthew McConaughey's The Beach Bum, directed by Harmony Korine. And I was looking forward to this film ever since I heard it announced because I love Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers. That's one of my favorite films. I really like that movie. So I was excited to see what he would do with Matthew McConaughey. And it's not as great as Spring Breakers, but I did find it extremely entertaining. And I'm not going to go into too much spoilers because the trailer only sells about the first 20 minutes of that film. And in the trailer, you see just Matthew McConaughey being like this. To me, he feels like a hippie transplanted into 2019, right? That type of person who is just, he's not tripping off politics. He's not tripping off. He is just in search of the sunset and his own bliss. Like you give him some weed and some music.
Would he get along with his character from Surfer Dude?
It's funny, in the pre-show they show the trailer for that, and I'm like, all right, maybe this is Surfer Dude like 10 years later or whatever, right?
I love Surfer Dude.
I haven't seen it, but I want to watch it now just to see how different those characters are, because I gotta imagine they are. Yes, and that's the thing, like McConaughey's Beach Bum doesn't come off as a surfer dude. Like he genuinely comes off as like a hippie transplanted into Key West, because it takes place in Florida, which I didn't know that's where Harmony Korine is from. He's from Florida, which would make sense with his movie Spring Breakers and how he showcases just that area, the Miami area. But anyway, Isla Fisher is in it. She's great. Snoop Dogg is in it. He's great. Martin Lawrence is in it. Brian. He's got the funniest fucking, I don't even want to call it a gag, but oh my, the entire theater was crying. Man, he plays Captain Whack. He is he works in Florida and in Miami, and basically he's like a self-made dolphin tourist. So what he does is tourists go to him and get on his boat, and he takes you out and shows you the dolphins, and you get to take pictures with take pictures of the dolphins or whatever, right? I can't. I don't want to spoil that scene, but I was fucking crying, man. Martin was. It's a combination of Martin, but just the setup of that, the absurdity of that entire scene, like, and it ends shockingly. And I could not believe what I was watching. But when I started to put together what was about to happen, I started laughing immediately. And I know people were like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy? Shut up. Because I knew what was coming. And man, that shit hit so hard. It was so out of place. It was left field, but it was hilarious. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed it. That movie basically has this message of, and there was a Q&A afterwards, actually. Tim League was in his, I wanted to say they were at the Alamo in New York. McConaughey was there. Harmony Korine was there. Isla Fisher was there. And Stefania, I'm going to mess up her last name. I'm going to forget it, so I'm just going to say her first name. But she plays the daughter of McConaughey and Isla Fisher. Isla Fisher plays Minnie Boo, and McConaughey plays Moondog. So they have a daughter, a teenage daughter in the film, and that young lady, that actor was there during the Q&A. And Harmony Korine basically, because Tim League asked him, like, what is the idea of the film? Like, what are you speaking on? Why make this movie? Who is Moondog, and what does he stand for? And in Moondog's lifestyle is a very much, he can go from living in a mansion to sleeping under a bridge and still be happy and content. Like, his life can have its ups and downs, but through it all, like, he's the same. Like in the film, and Harmony Korine mentioned, he didn't want to have a traditional character arc for Moondog, because that wouldn't be true to his idea of who Moondog was as a person. So in the opening of the film, McConaughey is this free-spirited, partying. He's a poet. Like he is like on a down slope, maybe. His publicist, and everyone is just waiting for like this new book, and he's just, I guess he hasn't found his magic, right? So he's just, until then, he's just moving through life like Moondog does, and something tremendous happens. I don't want to spoil what it is, that puts him on a different path. It's one of those films, and when I was watching it, I was like, it kind of feels like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in that you have this very eccentric person, right? And in the opening of that movie, we get a good chunk of just how he lives his life and how odd that life is because of how odd he is as a person. But and then there are these eclectic characters that he knows initially, but then also once he goes on his big adventure after something significant happens to him, he starts to meet more eccentric characters. But in meeting them, he affects them and they affect him in a certain particular way. But ultimately, things always work out for Pee-wee. And at the very end, Pee-wee Herman is the same Pee-wee as he is in the beginning, basically, except he's not necessarily so selfish as to only love his bike. Well, it's sort of similar in that, like, you know, the opening is we see it's been a good chunk portion of that the opening, just seeing who Moondog is, how he lives his life, how he's well known in the Keys because he lives in Key West, and you know you got people. It's one of those movies where in the movie, as eccentric as Pee-wee is, as wild and crazy as he in the movie, it's just a part of that. It's just accepted. It's just a part of that universe, right? Whereas if you transplant him into like the real world or a movie that's more grounded, he'd be really out of place with the shit that he says and he does. Well, it's the same with Moondog. Like in the movie, he can be who he is, and people will just that's Moondog. And you know, the early portion is that something significant happens. He goes on this adventure to Miami, and then he basically is at that point is trying to get back to Key West because that's his home. He doesn't want to live in Miami with all the rich partying people, the people in the mansions and things like that. That's not his vibe. He wants to sit on the beach and look at the sunset and play his little ukulele or whatever and just be one with the universe and find his cosmic vibe. And so it just feels like Pee-wee's Big Adventure in that way, where you know he goes through stuff, but ultimately things work out for him. So it's like a extremely heightened reality through the lens of Harmony Korine, and I love his DP. Once again, Benoit Debbie is lens is the film, and I just love the way this movie looks, and especially Spring Breakers. But I love the way that because that's the DP for Spring Breakers, but. I just love the visual of the film, and Snoop Dogg is hilarious in the movie. Like I thought he was going to have a cameo, but he's basically like Moondog's best friend. Like he's featured prominently. Zac Efron is in it. He's one of like, you know, like in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like you'll have like a segment where he meets Simone, and then that's a little like a vignette almost. Well, Zac Efron is that type of character where he meets him when he gets sent to rehab, and there's this wild and crazy vignette involving Zac Efron, and that shit was pretty funny. So I don't know, like I appreciated like the crazy cameos and things like that. I'm looking forward to maybe seeing it again sometime in the future because I went in expecting something closer to Spring Breakers when what Harmony Korine is trying to convey through each of those films is something different, and so. Now having seen it and understanding and also listening to the Q&A, I'm curious to go back and rewatch it and see if I can pull anything else from it or even a little more enjoyment. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it as it is, but you know, knowing what I know now, I'm curious to see if it'll play different. So yeah, that's going to do it for my week in Dork. When we come back from the break, we're going to have our review cast for, is this the 20th? 21st Marvel MCU film, the MCU film, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen.
Darren just spoiled the whole Martin Lawrence thing from Moondog, and I definitely need to see that movie now.
Yeah. Yes.
In the meantime, we are here to do our review cast for Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
The 21st film, the 21st entry into the MCU.
I always get really excited about these review casts, whether it's, Avengers Infinity War or Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's crazy. Right before a Marvel Studios movie begins, this sensation hits me, like this schoolboy, giddy sensation that I do not get
He was
with
full
any
on
other
squeeing.
film.
He was so cute.
Yeah,
So excited.
Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from. There's my bias.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna spoil the hell out of this movie. So
All right, are we gonna do traditional round robin, good, the bad, the ugly? Or are we
can
gonna have
do
an
whatever
open discussion?
we can do however you want. We can just jump right on in if you want.
All right, if we're gonna jump right on in, we have to start with the Marvel pre-credit logo.
Yep.
Logo. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't, you can't see it, but just saying that just made my hair stand on end. For those who haven't seen it, go see the movie and then come back for the review cast because we will be doing spoilers.
Yeah, and this is personally, I am so glad I did not know about this. Although emotionally, I might have been able to prepare myself because
Insta tears.
I
Insta
bawled
tears.
immediately, and I don't think I recovered for 2 minutes into Captain Marvel.
And the first time we saw it, it actually got a really nice audience reaction too of
Yeah.
people applauding and cheering.
Same at my screening. For those who don't know what we're talking about, the traditional Marvel Studios logo comes up, and it has the orchestral dun 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 dun, and you see the different scenes from all the Marvel films that are the inlay of the actual text of
Yeah,
Marvel
like a
Studios.
collage of the MCU.
Well, instead of being a collage of different scenes from different MCU films, it was just a collage of Stan Lee.
All his cameos.
All his cameos, yeah. And it was incredibly moving. It was a complete surprise. I didn't know about it, which I'm glad it wasn't spoiled for me. But it was a complete surprise and an utter delight. I want to say for damn near everyone in that auditorium. And
Punched in the gut.
Yeah.
I like when it ended and the words like "Thank you, Stan" came up. I said, "Oh, motherfuck me," and I was bawling.
Yeah. So off to a great start. So this film is about Carol Danvers, who is
Well, it's really about Veers.
Veers. Oh yes, okay, Veers. Who, when she was Carol Danvers, was an incredible Air Force soldier and Air Force test pilot, and the movie basically starts off. And interestingly enough, as far as heroes go, this isn't the typical origin story where someone in the beginning doesn't have the powers, then newly acquires their powers, and then has to learn how to master their powers and while defeating a new enemy. At the opening of the film, when we meet Veers, she already has her powers, and the movie uses forward progression, but also flashbacks to explore who she truly is and how she came into these powers.
I came into this movie with very mild expectation. I was not a fan of the trailers, and one of the things that sort of baffled me watching that second trailer in particular was how they were creating a mystery of who Carol Danvers is or was. And I didn't get from the trailer, that was a structure I couldn't understand why they were taking it. Watching the film, you're dropped right into a Kree conflict. We meet Veers. She's one of the members of Star Force. Jan Rog, played by Jude Law, is the commander of it. Korath the Pursuer, played by Jaimin Hansu, that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy, is a bad guy sided with Ronan the Accuser, the main villain of that film. He's a member of the Star Force.
I love this opening scene with the humor and the Korath feeling less than handsome.
Right. And then his buddy going like, objectively,
You're very
handsome. You're very
I
handsome
love
guy.
that.
Well, actually, the film specifically opens with what would ultimately be the driving mystery. There's it's a flashback of an explosion, and Veers is she's awakening from a wreckage.
She's got blue blood.
Yeah, and she has a vision of what we will learn to be.
This is the part that
The
I didn't
scroll.
see because I was crying so much because of the Stan Lee logo.
Oh, where he sees who we later know to become known as Marvel, who played by Annette Bening. We see her character there, and then and then she wakes up. So
And then there's a scroll that comes through the dust
Yes.
and raises some kind of
Right.
phaser.
So we start off inside Star Force. We learn about Hala, the Kree homeworld. We learn about the Supreme Intelligence, who takes the face of a woman that Veers recognizes as somebody from her past, but doesn't know exactly who it is.
Right.
We learn that it's Dr. Wendy Larson, aka Marvell, and we, I guess, are truly introduced to her through the training session that she's having with Jan Rog.
Yes.
And Jan Rog's chastising her, saying, like, you can't rely on these fire photon fists. You need to rely on your own skills, and you got to put emotion to the side if you're going to be a true combatant, a warrior like us. And then they get a mission to go to Torfa, where they've heard there's a Skrull incursion happening, and and one of their spies, I guess, has some information, and they don't want the Skrulls to get that information. And then firefight, and so it is interesting to me where we're just dropped right on into it. A whole bunch of gobbledygook language is thrown our way, and terminology, and Supreme Intelligence, what, and Jan Rog, huh, and Torfa, and blah blah blah, and this is something that they could not have done in phase 1. And they really, I don't think, could have done in phase 2. With like Doctor Strange, they always said that they were going to try to do an origin story without doing the basic origin story, but then they still ended up doing an origin story with Doctor Strange. And now they can get a little more creative with their structure. They can throw you right into the Kree, because we're somewhat familiar with the Kree if we remember Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And Ronan the Accuser and all that stuff. And so, this, I found the structure to ultimately be incredibly engaging, but sort of bizarre. And then I will hold off why I ultimately really loved that, because of what it does emotionally for the characters later on in the film. But I don't know. What did you guys think about the beginning?
How she was like.
Yeah, I mean, I like the beginning there to find, like, we get dropped in right into her having her powers, and then kind of, retroactively kind of going back into seeing a little bit about, how she became who she was. And, the stuff with Jan Rog and her trying to, like, him convincing her to kind of control your power, control your emotions.
Yeah, and this idea that they have gifted her this power,
yeah,
and are controlling this power.
Then it's interesting too, because once we ultimately learn who he really is, as far as like, okay, why is he really, telling her these things? Is he trying to hold her back, because of certain reasons? So I found all that to be interesting once we learn, once the twist happens, as far as like who the true villain of the movie is. So
What I think is really important to say about the beginning of this movie is that she is content in her life. She believes that she is lucky to be rescued. She believes that the powers she has gotten were a gift that she has to earn every single day. And
she's a member of the righteous cause of stomping out the Skrull plague, the infestation of the universe.
It's her expectations for her life and her capabilities at the beginning of the movie are so limited and so low that she does not realize how great she can be, because everyone around her is telling her, you're lucky you're even here.
Yeah, I appreciated the movie opening not on Earth, just opening on Hala, just a different type of environment, jumping into this conflict on this other planet when they go to this other mission. I appreciate just a different scenery from this an MCU film, because as much as I like, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and the Avengers, a lot of the Earthbound stuff, but for me, because I'm aware of just how vast the Marvel universe is, and I'm not even talking about just like the MCU, but even if we're going to talk cinematically, you've already given me a taste of Asgard. You have already given me a taste of Nidavellir. You've shown me like there are different realms out there in different corners of the universe, and I want more of that, because I've had almost my whole life of movies taking place on Earth, and so I want to see these other new worlds and new environments, and I appreciate the movie starting off somewhere else. So yeah.
Yeah, and the idea that, in Avengers Infinity War, we meet our greatest threat, and it comes from out there.
Out there, yeah.
And, the Avengers have graduated to a cosmic plane.
Yeah.
And, Guardians of the Galaxy was this big promise of, like, we're going to explore all these different corners, and now we're doing that. We don't have to build to it.
Yeah. Although I will say this, and this is me overthinking. I got to get out of my own way sometimes, but like for all these different, and you know what will probably suffice is if it's just explained away with like a bit of dialogue or something. But like in the far reaches of the galaxy, like why are these people speaking English?
Well, they're not. They're not speaking English.
They have universal translators
they
like
all
Star
have
Trek.
universal translators.
But I mean, in every Marvel movie, like in the Guardians, like every movie,
because
like,
everybody that is the light of dialogue.
And
everybody
there is a
has
line of dialogue when she's talking to the security guard.
Yeah.
when she says this is my universal
translator. Yeah. So everyone they're using English because the movies are made on Earth.
Right,
and
so I get that. That's what I'm saying. I understand it, but it's just for me because I overthink stuff. Like I'm like, why don't they just make a alien language in a different?
The perception is if we were there,
we would understand.
Yeah.
I think
I read subtitles.
If I had an issue with the opening, I feel that some of the direction around that Torfa action scene is pretty weak. That that it's really dark and hard to see a lot of the stuff on Torfa. But I can forgive that when Jan Rog screams the word Skrulls and all the Torfan citizens transform into Skrulls and they have these battle clubs and suddenly they just start roaring at each other because, I have very little invested in Carol Danvers as a comic book reader. I know very little about Captain Marvel, just her tertiary appearances in other comics that I read. I never really got into the Captain Marvel stuff. But I am super invested in Kree and Skrulls stuff.
Yeah.
So like my geekiest moment at the beginning of this movie was Jan Rog going, Skrulls! And then the Skrulls appearing. I was like, it's finally happening.
Yeah.
Skrulls in space.
So with that mission, they get caught. Virus gets captured. And that's when we're first introduced to Ben Mendelsohn's character, correct?
Talos.
What are your thoughts about Talos and Ben Mendelsohn?
I love his introduction. I mean, I guess we see him capture her, but then it cuts to a really surprising, shock of an image of inside the hangar and the doors opening up, and we hear Talos say, well, "Let's open her up." Mm-hmm. And then suddenly we're inside her memories and we're getting flashes of things and we're hearing the Skrulls somewhere outside commenting on her images. And then Veers inside her memory can also hear the Skrulls and is sort of being commanded to look at certain images, to grab coordinates, to grab names off name badges. And the way that was all edited was extremely exciting.
I thought that was really cool because it's almost like they were trying to fast forward and rewind to get to a certain point in her memory. And to hear like Ben Mendelsohn talking because it's informing us as an audience as well as far as her past, but also them trying to pull information, ultimately find out who Wendy Lawson is. But the way they were doing it by trying to replay it, so I like that rewind, fast forward aspect of that.
And also Brie Larson's performance of reliving these memories she doesn't recognize and experiencing the same moment again and again.
Yeah, that conversation with Wendy Lawson when Goose the cat comes up and says, "Oh, Goose likes you." That's surprising. Yeah. And then that conversation plays 3 times
from different angles.
Yeah.
And then she breaks her restraints. An action sequence ensues, and ultimately she escapes.
And she totally owns those Skrulls.
Yeah. And
with the
handcuffs.
Shackles still on her hands.
That was pretty badass. And she ultimately crashes on Earth.
Yeah. And on into C-53.
I live there.
Into a blockbuster.
Yeah, and then 90s nostalgia explodes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about? What are your thoughts about the setting of the 90s and how it was handled in the film?
Well, I like the idea of a prequel and this becoming not only an origin story for Captain Marvel, but for Nick Fury as well, and an origin story for the Avengers Initiative. 1995. That is definitely my decade. I was 16 in 1995. And so I have a lot of nostalgia for the time. I have no nostalgia for that music.
Ugh. 90s music is the worst.
You didn't like
No.
that?
No. And it's hilarious to me when you pair the soundtrack of Captain Marvel up against the soundtrack of Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy owns.
Oh my God. Song for song.
But I like that blockbuster stuff when you see, True Lies standees and, the right stuff and all that. Like, I like all that. That was fun.
What about you, Brian?
No, I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I dug some of the music.
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I was.
I feel like they dropped the ball because the 90s is the golden era for hip hop.
I know.
You had NWA, and they're on the West Coast too.
Well, 95, man, you got like.
Well,
Wu-Tang,
what I find interesting about that is, yes, it's 1995, but she's not a teenager in 1995. Her golden age is the 80s. And so when we get flashbacks within the flashback to 1989, she's rocking like, the Guns N' Roses shirt and, singing Kiss Me Deadly and Lita Ford. That's really her cultural touchstones.
So once she crashes into the Blockbuster video, she makes her way outside and she has that encounter with the security guard. And then where she makes her way to the Radio Shack, fashions a communication device and able to retrofit a payphone to communicate with
outer space.
Yeah, what's
Jan Rog.
Jan Rog, and
these are all very easy, not silly names, Darren.
Sorry,
Jan Rog, Marvell.
I want to avoid calling him Jude Law. And then shortly after that, we get the introduction of Nick Fury and Agent Coulson. So, all right, I'm gonna be that guy to go first. So this is probably my main problem with the film. At the very least, in the first act of the film, a lot of the humor just fell flat to me. And I feel like I like Brie Larson as Veers, as Carol Danvers, as Captain Marvel. I was kind of skeptical going into the film, but once I saw her in something outside of a trailer and promotional footage and stuff like that, it's one of those things where I can't see anyone else in that role. But I feel like I didn't think that the script wasn't to my liking. So, for example, the conversation where she meets Nick Fury and she's like, "I'm a member of Star Force and I'm just here to stop the intergalactic blah blah blah," just like that particular type of dialogue. Like, I understand the type of humor that they were going for with,
where she assumes that the alien species she's encountering is aware of the Kree-Skrull conflict.
Right. And I understand, but just like the way, I don't even know if it was specifically the dialogue or the way that was cut. But that just didn't work for me. And there were several scenes like that involving humorous dialogue that didn't work for me. But even before that, when they first introduced Jan Rog. Goddamn, I'm getting closer. When they're doing training combatives, they have a bit of banter and back and forth, and I felt like it was cut really fast. And I'm not talking about like the fighting, but just like the conversation from what he's saying to. I just felt like that conversation didn't have room to breathe. If
I agree,
that makes any sense.
I especially agree in that conversation. I think there are certain conversations in this movie that are edited not great.
Right, and so that I didn't like. But once Fury and Veers are paired together, like the humor between them, like all that shit worked for me. Like they're great together.
Yeah,
I need the sequel to be like the further. I just need them.
I mean,
in a movie
they have
together.
a buddy cop dynamic.
Yeah.
I think they really work well together,
and I appreciated that.
I do think that there might be some humorous elements that don't work for me as well. I didn't have so much of a problem with that conversation as I do certain other ones. But I put like the success rate of comedy in Captain Marvel to the success rate of the comedy in Ant-Man the Wasp and the original Ant-Man. Some of it works, some of it doesn't for me.
Yeah.
But more times than not, I was laughing along.
Yeah, for me, my displeasure with the comedy was just it's really front heavy. Like once the second and definitely the third act came, like I had no problems. I was fully on board. Even with the script, even with the script, I felt like, to me, my main issues were in like maybe the first act of the film. But so they
Coulson gets nothing to do.
Yeah.
And his de-aging does not look good.
No. I didn't want to like harp on that, but because Sam Jackson's de-aging is the pinnacle of the technology at this point, like holy shit.
I was prepared not to like Clark Gregg's de-aging because I'd seen the trailers.
Oh.
But to me it's more disappointing how little he has to do in the film.
Yeah.
I like some of the moments that he has when he sees Carol and Nick
in the stairwell,
and he chooses not to. I like that moment, and I like his final moments in the film at the very, very end.
Yeah.
But he was such a tragic death. I don't count Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He does not get resurrected, people. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does not exist within the MCU, according to Brad. He was such an important figure to Phase 1. I feel like the movie deserved that he deserved to have more time within this prequel film.
Yeah,
I did like the idea of him being a newbie, though.
Yeah, the Rook. Yeah.
So after this conversation that I'm speaking of, one of the Skrulls is spotted, and a chase ensues, which leads to an action sequence on the train and a car chase sequence with Nick Fury
and Stan Lee's actual cameo.
His actual cameo.
Making Mallrats and Kevin Smith part of the MCU, and making Stan Lee as Stan Lee part of the MCU, therefore making Marvel Comics part of the MCU.
But maybe the Watcher was in Mallrats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe that wasn't Stan Lee in Mallrats. Maybe that was the Watcher. I like to think that's even one that's.
But I'm just saying that's true. But even in Mallrats, they're talking about Spider-Man and the Thing and Fantastic Four and all that
awesome.
stuff.
I heard Kevin Smith had a pretty emotional reaction to that, which is understandable.
Yeah. There's a really great Polygon article about the paradox created by having this cameo.
I love it. But the important takeaway at the culmination of this action sequence is that Nick Fury is sort of made a believer, because the Agent Coulson that is in him is riding shotgun is not the actual Agent Coulson.
He takes it in stride.
Yeah.
Oh shit, shape-shifting aliens.
Is he Sam Jackson? He's cool. Yeah. He's cool as fuck. So this leads to them actually pairing up.
Yeah. Can we talk about that action scene on the train, though?
Sure. Yeah.
I think the directing of this scene is the best action in the movie. I really, really like how the car chase and the foot chase and then the fisticuffs within the subway car are all cut together.
That was a strong sequence.
Yeah, compared to the action scene in the first film, I was like, oh, okay, I can still navigate everything that's going on in this scene.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, and I love seeing an old lady getting smashed in the head. I really like this sequence.
Yeah, what do you think, Lisa? Did you she didn't go to sleep during this sequence, right?
I did not.
Yay.
I did not. I also really enjoyed the granny beatdown scene, and I love the fact that the people on the train sided with the old lady. Like, that
and they kept trying to pull her down.
Right.
Pull Carol down. Yeah. Like, these people wouldn't actually help. Haven't they ever been on a subway train?
Damn. But
it was also very exciting, the parallel sequence of
Nick and the Skrull in the car.
Car. Yeah, that was also very cool.
Yeah. So I want to say before, because we don't immediately have them paired up, Carol goes somewhere else.
She goes to Poncho's.
That's that bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Nick follows her there. So at this point, this is where like I really sat up and took notice, because the chemistry between the two actors is undeniable. Like you can tell, like when they're on set, they probably have like the greatest rapport. Because
you're talking about the scene where I got to determine if you're a Skrull or not.
From that point on, like every scene between the two, like I really enjoyed it. Do you want to talk about that, Lisa? Like when just seeing those two together and how they play off of each other.
Yeah, they definitely have a mutual respect for each other, and you really get the sense that these are two trained professionals that are they dole out information on their own terms, and I love how over the course of the film, they learn to really trust each other.
Yeah.
Well, and this idea that her appearance and the Skrulls and this idea of a world beyond our world finally gives Fury purpose. You know, he's been a soldier, he's been a spy, but the satisfaction he gets from this mission that he's going to be left with completes him as a
well,
human
this is
being.
like Nick Fury to us has always been the guy who knows everything.
Yeah.
And this is literally the first thing he learns. We get to watch him learn that thing on which all other knowledge is built. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And you caught me grinning in that moment because I was thinking all the way to the end of the movie, the scene at the sink.
Oh my God. So good.
Sweet.
So good. Yeah, yeah. So this, Carol, Veers at this point, she's thinking, she says, okay, once she finds out Nick's status or his experience, she immediately goes to his military clearance, his top secret clearance, and what that means for access to this information that she's trying to attain. So then we head to Shield. We go to
Project Pegasus.
Project Pegasus,
which is the hangar building from the first Avengers film that explodes.
Yes. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That's where the Tesseract was being tested.
That's right. So we go there. So at this point, though, we failed to. We skipped over the autopsy scene where we actually see Ben Mendelsohn looking like Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah. And my twin committing the autopsy.
Yeah.
It was you, B.
He's also in Tone Deaf. He's the boyfriend who breaks up with Olive in the beginning.
Oh shit.
Yeah, a lot of my twin in this movie. These movies.
What is that actor's name?
I can't remember.
But this scene, we see him given the mission to. We see Fury given the mission by his superior to track her down or stay close to her, gather information, but keep it on the DL. Yeah, keep it on the DL. Yeah. So when we get,
because I'm a dirty Skrull,
right? So when we get to Project Pegasus, it seems like they're paired up and they're working together, but we also see that that's not the case, as Nick Fury is messaging to let them know that I'm here and contained with the package. So
he rats her out.
Yeah, he rats her out. What did you all think about that scene and how that transpires?
Like, I enjoy that scene. I don't know if I love that sequence. I think there's a little bit of a lost opportunity there as far as like an excitement level of the Skrull agents coming in, Fury realizing, oh no, I messed up here.
Yeah.
The bad guys have infiltrated my own organization. I think there could have been inside that records room a really great action sequence, shootout, something.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's good. It moves the plot along. We get into the records of Carol Danvers, and she realizes, oh, maybe I had a life here before I was Veers.
Right.
And we meet Goose the cat.
Yeah.
The Flurkin.
Yeah, the Flurkin.
And we also, this is also where we first hear about
Maria
Rambeau.
Yeah, Maria Rambeau.
Oh yeah, that's right. I want to bring up another. It's not really an issue. I need clarification from anyone in this room, actually. So Danvers veers her powers, right? So in the scene, immediately following the introduction of Goose, when at the very least when Fury meets Goose, there's a door, and Fury's going to use his Scotch tape trick again, but Danvers, she fires a photon blast and melts a hole in the door, right? When we're in the records room and Talos comes in there and he's fucking Fury up, which that was pretty dope. Like, he punched that motherfucker up and then slammed him down. Anyway.
I love that. That was a really good fight move.
Right?
I wanted more of that.
Right? That's pretty badass. And
maybe because Sam Jackson's 70-year-old, we didn't.
Yeah. Veers saves Fury by shooting Talos with a photon blast. His suit should have at the very least been burnt, right?
If it was made of the same material that the door was, but I don't think it is.
It's cloth, right?
Oh no! Well, it's not cloth. It's
his body.
It's his body.
So,
but I don't know, Darren. You're gonna have to go like comics, man.
Oh, okay. All right. So I didn't know if that was
clearly what he translates his DNA into is stronger than a metal door. Otherwise, he would have had a wound.
Okay.
But it is also identical.
It looks
to the
like
DNA of
of
Keller.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay.
Comics, man. There's lots of things like that across the MCU, Darren, that you can nitpick if you want.
Yeah, like in Ragnarok, like how the God of Thunder is electrocuted by the little thing on his neck. Like I'm trying to get past that, man.
Because it just is. It's a little stronger.
Right. Taika Waititi is lucky. I love Taika Waititi. So I will overlook any fucking flaw with that movie. It's great.
Movies are littered with things that you can nitpick, especially fantasy, action, adventure things.
Yeah.
And it's really about how much you're digging the film that you're presented and whether or not you can get past those nitpicks.
Yeah. So that was just something I thought about. But anyway, we do. So does she go? Her and Nick flee because she takes that's a early Quinjet, right?
Yeah, it's an early Quinjet.
Yeah.
They get information of where Maria Rambeau might be, and so they go and meet up with her at her garage.
What did you all think about that? The reunion of seeing them two. It's for me, I felt like that was really an emotional scene for Rambeau. Like I connected with her of just imagining what that's like, seeing your best friend who you thought was dead, you buried her, and then
so this scene, not so much when Maria and Monica see her in the hangar, but when they go back to her house
and they're at the table,
and the actress is Lashana Lynch. Is that correct?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lashana Lynch, like this is. She has so little screen time in Captain Marvel.
Right.
But she is so damn good in this movie. And this scene here, for me, sells the entire structure of Captain Marvel. We totally understand the loss of memory and the loss of Carol Danvers over these 6 years because of Lashana Lynch's performance in that moment and the way she delivers her lines to Carol Danvers.
I found that scene at the table when she was telling that story. I found that scene particularly moving because of her performance.
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
about you, Lisa?
Oh, I'm in the same boat with you guys, and this idea that she was living in their house. She was a part of their everyday life.
And so, Captain Marvel's different from a lot of Marvel movies because we don't get a lot of time with Carol Danvers pre-origin,
right.
like super powered up.
Right.
And we have to understand who she was pre-Captain Marvel through that memory invasion, flashbacks, the climactic Supreme Intelligence confrontation where she uses images from her past self against her, and this conversation. And I think what Captain Marvel does with all of these cinematic tricks is show how much narrative you can pack, how much narrative content you can pack through images, what movies do better than any other medium with such, with so little screen time.
What about you, Brian?
Oh, I loved Lashana Lynch. I thought she was great, especially in that moment at the table, because, like you were saying, like just the idea of her seeing her friend that she hasn't seen for so long, who she presumed to be, dead. It was a very moving sequence in that moment.
I also appreciate the narrative choice to not make Veers all that different than Carol Danvers. Like, it turns out Carol Danvers likes to joke around, doesn't do so well with...
her personality's not shifted.
That she, like, when Maria sees her friend, she recognizes her, not just from her image, but, like, she sees her personality. She sees the essential person that she is, and the fact that this essential person does not remember her.
And she sees the idolization that the child, Lieutenant Trouble, Monica, has for her. Yeah. And, I've kept your jacket. I wear your jacket. I'm sorry I got a ketchup stain on it. I've kept all your photographs. Let's go through your photographs.
I'm wearing your T-shirt.
Let me show you who you are.
And the fact that Monica is coming from a place of pure acceptance of, you've been through a thing. You're back in my life. Like obviously, Maria is hurt, and Maria feels like reserved, and Maria feels this emotional distance, but like from the child's perspective,
and logic has been broken for her as well.
It's for the little kid, it's all acceptance.
Yeah.
Like, clearly this is the same person. She's going through a thing. Let me remind you.
So there's this idea that Carol did not have a healthy relationship with her parents, particularly her father, and that Monica and Maria became her family. And so this dynamic that is occurring between these three women is not seen anywhere else in the MCU and is rarely seen in any other pop culture, certainly adventure comics, adventure movies. Yeah. It's a really unique experience as an audience member to see these three women.
10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, Maria would be a man.
Maria wouldn't even be there at all. Maria would be fulfilled by the Nick Fury character. All that screen time would be devoted to the relationship.
You don't think that there would be some kind of romantic?
It would be very tiny.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there might be a romantic thing. There certainly would be a romantic situation there. Even a year ago, look at Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor.
I just now noticed with you saying that there was no like type of love interest or anything like that for her in the film.
And that isn't even true for most of our male Marvel characters. And I did not miss that element from the film.
Me neither. Like I said, I just noticed that.
It allowed for you to have the Maria, Monica, Carol relationship as well as the Carol, Nick Fury relationship.
Yeah. But now, of course, I'm shipping Carol Danvers and Maria. I'm like, they got to get together.
No.
Come on!
I don't necessarily think that. I think it's a great platonic relationship, and you have so few of those in films.
I just really like kissing.
I know, Lisa. I know. But I definitely want to see more Maria. Well, actually, I probably want adult Monica in the next Captain Marvel.
I want her. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hopefully she'll be showing up in S.H.I.E.L.D. somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be cool. So, an important story development or turn is the seeds are planted for the introduction of such in the next scene that takes place still in the house, and when Talos arrives.
Oh man,
Talk about that.
So there's like a knock on the door. Neighbor, he wants his kids to go take a look at this crazy funny spaceship you got outside. And then Carol, of course, goes like, "That's a Skrull. We can't trust that guy."
Right.
But no, it's not a Skrull because Talos is already in the house drinking from his milkshake or whatever.
Yeah.
My favorite shot in the whole movie.
Yeah.
We have a confrontation with Talos, and we learn maybe the Skrulls are not the wretched creatures that the Kree tell us that they are. Maybe they're just like people.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just refugees trying to find a home.
What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
I loved it. I loved that twist. Like I said, because going into the movie, I mean, they're showing you that the Skrulls are like the main villain,
the new enemy.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Feige was kind of careful when he announced it at Comic-Con to say, the Skrulls will be in Captain Marvel. He didn't say
the image that they show is Captain Marvel punching some Skrulls.
Yeah. But he didn't say that there would be the villains of the movie. So I don't know. I actually like how they did the switch of that, and I thought it just brought a great, exciting new element to the story.
I wonder what the film would have been like for me if I did not obviously you see Ben Mendelsohn on screen, you're like, don't trust that guy.
He's the bad guy.
But also the relationship that
Jude Law, Jan Rog.
Yeah, because I remember Brad spoiling to me way before we saw the movie. Oh, well,
Jan Rog
but he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. So I went into this movie going like, well, Jude Law is a bad guy.
You're welcome, Lisa.
But I do wonder if how the movie would be different. It's not like I'm going like I could see it coming, so now I'm disappointed. I still thought it was interesting.
That Jan Rog was going to be the ultimate bad guy. I did not know that Talos was going to be such a swell fella.
No, neither did I.
And really, what a delight it is to have Ben Mendelsohn covered in Skrull makeup, being a personable, sympathetic character. And when we align with him, it's such a joy.
Oh man, that scene when he's reunited with his family.
Yeah.
I was okay. Ben Mendelsohn's because going into the film, like I had been hearing, I didn't read reviews, but I just been hearing people commend Ben Mendelsohn and that character. Like, oh man, he's great. He steals the movie. And so watching it, I'm like, all right, to me, when I hear his voice, like, I can't not see Ben Mendelsohn, even with like the Skrull makeup, right? So I'm like, all right, he's fine. He's Ben Mendelsohn. Ben Mendelsohn's always
he's
great.
He's being a Skrull villain. What's so special here?
But I'm used to seeing Ben Mendelsohn be a bad guy. So to see him play against type as this Skrull, but also on that, on top of that, the surprise of the Skrulls this particular Skrull not being a villain. And then that scene, the reunification of him and his family, like I was like, oh my God, this is great.
So here's my question for you guys. They introduced the Skrulls finally after legal battles and many movies before us. They introduced the Skrulls as refugees looking to get a home. The Skrull race, will they always be seen from the mainstream point of view as sort of benevolent characters, or can they do a secret invasion kind of story after this film?
Well, I mean, it's like I wouldn't view in order for me to be able to connect to and relate to these characters on screen, I have to ground them and relate them to my experiences or something I can relate to. So I would view the Skrulls as no different than the human race. We have good human beings and we have bad human beings. We had bad human beings who can influence a larger portion of the human race to believe what they believe in and fight on their behalf against.
And we see it also in this movie with the Kree, right? There are good Kree and there are bad Kree.
Right. And so,
but I do think it's interesting to introduce them as a positive race. And I think I would still love, like at the end of Avengers Endgame, if, Captain America turned into a Skrull at the end. You're like, oh my God, the Skrulls have been here the whole time. But
it would be Hawkeye.
It'll definitely be Hawkeye.
God
Hawkeye's
damn it.
a Skrull. But I have seen already online reactions being like, well, there goes the whole secret invasion thing.
You know what? Because we love Talos now, that's how you get a compelling bad guy, is a guy that you like. If something could happen to him, his family, or whatever, that could make him turn and want to do or lead an invasion. So when you have, because if you have at that point, if you have a conflict between the Earth's mightiest heroes and him, now the stakes are raised as an audience member because you want the Avengers to win because you like them, but you like Talos too because
I would love for them to do that, Darren. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think we're going to find like a Skrull like Kl'rt.
Right.
Everyone knows Kl'rt, the Super Skrull.
Oh.
He's the real bad Skrull.
Okay.
You got to watch out for that guy.
We still have Super Skrulls then.
Yeah.
So you know what? Marvel figured out a way how to make the shit work, right? They always do. So I have every faith that if they're going to do that Secret Wars, and again, like it can be scaled down from the scope of the Secret War invasion in the comics. It could be, even if they sent like 100 or 1,000 Skrulls to Earth, compared to however many there are that complete their entire civilization, that's just like sending an army from the U.S. to infiltrate another country. So it can still happen.
I want it to happen so
It'll happen.
Hawkeye's a Skrull.
God damn it, Hawkeye. Sorry. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah.
So now after this revelation, he implores Veers to help me get to this energy source.
That's not the only revelation either in that moment, though.
Oh yeah, it's
your doctor, Dr. Wendy Lawson, is in actuality a Kree scientist named Mar-Vell.
What are your thoughts on her being Mar-Vell?
I mean,
because I know that's changed from the comics.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Frankly, when I saw that Jan Rog was going to be the leader of Star Force, I thought, oh, well, they're just not going to do the whole Mar-Vell, and there was a previous Captain Marvel and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Revealing that Annette Bening is Mar-Vell, I thought was great. Mm-hmm. I was super surprised by it. A nice way to get Yar Flurkin into the mix as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought from a performance point of view, the acting that Annette Bening gets to do as Mar-Vell / Dr. Wendy Lawson and Supreme Intelligence, delightful.
Yeah.
So much fun to observe. I love her supreme intelligence. Oh my gosh.
What do you think about? What are your thoughts about that reveal, Lisa, and also Jan Rog? Did I get that right?
Yeah, Jan Rog. Yeah.
Finally, yes. His reveal. Well, you already knew. Oh, never mind. You already. I didn't know that he was going to be a bad guy in this. I remember early in the movie seeing Jude Law as a good guy. I was like, man, that's just refreshing because normally he's been playing like he has a history of like playing assholes. Like, it's refreshing to see him be a good dude. But then like when it's revealed in the movie, I was like, okay, I should have seen that shit coming. I think I was just more floored by Talos being. I was more taken by Talos being a decent dude.
Same. And I like the whole idea. Like, okay, she was working on a Lightspeed engine so she could end this Kree-Skrull war, find a place for the Skrulls where they could be at peace and away from the conflict. I like that as a motivation, and I like how that then allows Carol, because the U.S. government at the time would not let female pilots into combat. She's able to serve in a way that she's always dreamed of. I think it is weird. Billy and I were actually having this conversation the other day. This idea that there is this disparity between like she's a woman on the Kree, and in Kree on Hala, she's just another soldier.
Lady.
And then in America, in the United States, on planet Earth, C-53, she can't be the pilot that she wants to be. She has to be
humans
relegated.
are ignorant and less evolved than
I hadn't even thought about that until I was talking to Billy, and I really would love if the film had addressed that disparity.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that Carol gets to have her action hero moment, her sacrifice moment, and her rebirth as Captain Marvel through the Lightspeed engine explosion.
What about you, Lisa?
I just appreciate that all acts of heroics are done by women. They're at no stage of the game. Like, there is Nick Fury, but he's more or less
like
just
what?
along for the ride. Yeah. So between Dr. Lawson, Carol Danvers, and Maria Rambeau,
and Goose the Flurkin, also female.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, and Goose the Flurkin, they all on all levels, all heroes were women in this film.
Yeah.
And all villains were dudes.
Talos is he did some heroic stuff.
What did he do?
He saved his family. He fought against
No, he found a hero to save his family.
But then he shot some people.
Yeah, defensively.
No, he went on the attack.
No, he was being defensive.
Okay.
Even when Nick Fury like smashed the fake Agent Coulson, he was being defensive.
Without Talos at the end of that movie, he helped break Fury and Carol.
But I'm pretty sure it was Carol's
Actually,
idea.
Carol would have gotten out on her own.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Carol's idea.
Okay, Lisa.
It was all her plan.
Sorry. Okay.
What are your thoughts on the third act of the film, Brian? Because now we're at that point. So she does agree to get him to this engine, but she wants to continue the mission of Dr. Lawson. She wants to end the war, not help one side, defeat the other. And so it takes us into that third act.
I think I remember if it was in space. I like the shot when she's falling back down to Earth.
Yeah.
And she gets knocked off of the shuttle that Jan Rog was piloting.
Yeah, and then her powers take form and she's able to see her fly.
So we haven't talked about that, though, the fact that she regains her full ability.
Yeah.
She's irradiated by this light speed engine, giving her this massive access to energy.
Well, and this light speed engine has some connection to the Tesseract, which we know now is the Space Stone. So really, she is
right.
She's like a human Space Stone.
She's like the Vision. She is a piece of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
She is one of its fingers.
Yeah. Which I think will play an important part. With a lot of people's speculation as far as like her going into the quantum realm, like, well, now seeing that she has the power of the Space Stone, it makes sense for her to be able to manipulate space and time and space and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool and interesting.
Yeah, and what I love about the reveal when she is connected to the Supreme Intelligence, and the Supreme Intelligence is saying, like, look, we made you. You're nothing without us. You're just a pathetic piece of human. And she realizes that this device that they have on her neck isn't actually moderating anything, that she can get rid of it. It's limiting her.
It's clipping her wings.
And that they didn't make her. She is this. And she breaks through and she says, yeah, I am human, and humans stand up. And that's that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse thing, right? Like, what separates a hero from somebody else? It's somebody who gets knocked down and stands up.
Yeah.
And then you have that montage of memories of her falling, and always getting back up to address the person who knocked her down.
Yeah.
And like, again, Niagara Falls, I just thought that was so beautiful.
So, Lisa, as a female,
as a lady,
what? Not even in this particular moment, but I mean, as a whole, to see you represented in this way, what does this feel like to you?
To me, the part of her narrative that I really connected to was her being told always to regulate her emotions. That she is not at full power. She is not at full potential when she is feeling her feelings. Because that's something that's used against women all of the time. This idea that women are too emotional to have responsibilities. If a woman was president, what happens when she gets a period and she hits the red button because she's having a bad day? This idea that women are less than because they feel too much.
Yeah.
And
because men can't be emotional.
Yeah. And it's also toxic to masculinity. Like, now men have the idea that they have to keep it. They have to keep their emotions in check. But when men show their emotions, it's brave. When women show their emotions, it's weak. And the way that was paralleled by her connection to her powers, this idea of she was under the false impression that her greatness was a gift from someone else, and her greatness was something that she was not in control of. And the idea that once she realizes, actually, all of these people who I thought were encouraging me and I thought were wanting me to meet my full potential, what they were actually doing was they were restraining me. And that idea of to be a woman in this world, to be a powerful woman, you have to be your full self. And you have to recognize when these restrictions are being put on you, with the idea of that's in your best self-interest, and because it is so insidious, you don't even realize when it's happening. So, like, when men get a job, they're taking an opportunity. When women get a job, they're given an opportunity. And that's how she felt. She felt that in Star Force, she was being given an opportunity. And now as Captain Marvel, she is taking an opportunity to be her best self, to be a hero, and to be a hero to the Skrulls, who have also been suffering. Well, these particular Skrulls also being, as refugees, being given a false narrative. So I think it's pretty darn cool. And like that moment of watching like a girl stand up and stand up and stand up when all people are trying to do is show you, look at all these times you fell down. Look at all of these times when you were less than. Look at all of these times when you were warned. We told you, like, you're not strong enough. We told you that you're not capable. There's a reason it's called a cockpit, like hearing reasons why you can't and shouldn't, so that idea that we all need to do a better job of focusing at the times we stood up versus the times we were knocked down. And I think that that's a great message for anybody.
Yeah. And throughout the film, Ronan the Accuser, Brad, you mentioned him at the opening. He is in the film.
Kind of.
Right. He is attempting to make his way to... I guess he's trying to make his way to Earth. Well, he does make his way to Earth. He attempts to launch an assault on the planet, and Captain Marvel quickly deters that. My question, what are your thoughts about Ronan's inclusion in the film. Period.
I mean, I don't think that is one of the greatest aspects of the movie. I love that they bring Ronan into the story, as an accuser, as one of. Sorry,
He's getting verklempt. Every time he thinks about Ronan the accuser,
it happens.
He thinks about that scene where he's getting washed with the blue skin and with the sponge.
That's a great scene.
That's not in this movie.
I don't even know what I was saying now, Lisa.
Oh, sorry.
Not your fault. He's there. I think just like Coulson, there were better opportunities to use him. I would have. It's hard because it's a 2-hour movie. They're trying to cram so much in it. So Jan Rog has to be in space for a long time. That means that Ronan has to be back even further. And it's a little clunky. It's a little lackluster.
Yeah. What about the conclusion as far as the final confrontation between Jan Rog?
I love it. I love that sequence where she obliterates all their warheads and then just punches her way through a battle cruiser like it's nothing.
I mean, like on Earth, like when Jan Rog crashes and she confronts him finally before.
And he tries his mentor shtick one more time.
Yeah, I think that scene is fine. Like I think it's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah.
I think the confrontation between the Supreme Intelligence was so impactful, and it felt like the climactic battle to me.
Yeah.
That the final, I got to deal with Jan Rog was like leftover script. They could have done something a little bit better there, but it's fine.
All right. So we're, I guess, at the end of the film. Well, one thing we have to note is we didn't talk about how Goose is integral to the. Not that. That's pretty cool. That gag. That I don't. For whatever reason, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie,
no, they've seen it.
I'm gonna do you a favor and not spoil the gag of Flerken's true nature and his true ability or her true abilities. But
the squid insides, the super strong squid insides?
Yeah. But I want to
It's a
talk
pocket
about
dimension.
how
like a TARDIS?
Goose is integral to Nick Fury's eye patch.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Would you?
It was
was
cute.
You pleased with that?
It was fun. It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I laughed.
Yeah. So at the end of the film,
what about you? What do you think?
I thought it was fine. I was it just gets infected and he loses his eye.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well,
It's still
space
a
germs.
cat. So probably you get some kind of crazy toxoplasmosis of the eye.
Well, is it a cat though?
Yeah, but he's got to poop in a box.
Oh.
Don't you think?
Or a pocket dimension, maybe. I don't know. I think that gag is very, very, very Marvel-y.
Yeah.
We've been told that Fury lost this eye because it was the last time he didn't trust somebody. That's what he told Cap in the Winter Soldier, right?
Yeah.
And this air of this super badass. And what does Marvel Studios do? It comes in and undercuts your expectations of that for a laugh.
Yeah.
And I laughed.
I'm not against it.
And the final scene where Coulson presents him with a whole tray of eyeballs was funny to me.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, we skipped over that part. You had mentioned it earlier on, but one of the final scenes in the film, it takes place back at the house on the farm, or the house, and we have a scene between the final scene with Carol and Nick in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
And when she gifts him his super uber space pager that we would later come to see in the Stinger or the Tag at Infinity War, a nice back and forth between the two characters there. Anything you wanted to say about that?
I think that the idea that Nick Fury got this pager, has known about Captain Marvel being out there since the 90s, and he has not used it.
Do we know he hasn't used it?
I like the idea that he has not used it. After everything that Nick Fury has been through, the idea of when do we call Superman? When is the power that Captain Marvel has a power that I would say rivals Thor?
Yeah.
A power that rivals Vision?
Oh, yeah. I think what's interesting about him not using the pager, if he never used the pager, is if you think back to that first Avengers during the Battle of New York, he really needs that battle in New York. He's forming Phase 2. He's forming the Avengers. He needs to dip Coulson's cards in his blood to keep the Avengers going. So he's not going to use that pager because we know he's a manipulative dude. And that's why he doesn't.
So it's not an act of tremendous restraint. It's like an act of calculation.
I think it's an act of calculation, certainly within the context of the Avengers. Now,
but I think he also believes that the Avengers can handle it because ultimately they do.
Yeah.
So.
But I also like it when he sings. And Samuel L. Jackson should sing in every movie. It can be into a scrub brush.
Well,
it could be into a hairbrush.
Yeah.
It could be into just his thumb.
I love how the Marvelettes are
Yeah.
now incorporated into Marvel as a being, as a thing.
Yeah.
I think that was really, really rad.
Yeah.
And, like my final thing to say about like Captain Marvel is, the Kree, Skrull, all this alien gibberish, Marvel, Jan Rog, the Supreme Intelligence. Like it's so easily to scoff at that stuff. And I think other studios would be like, okay, let's change some names. Let's not call it the Supreme Intelligence. But Marvel goes, no, that's what they are in the comics. And so we're going to treat it as seriously as anything else. And Marvel is no stupider than, Drax as a name. And we're going to lean in. And I love that about Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
And that's all of the goodwill that has been built up over all of these films.
Right.
All right. Before we end our discussion about the film, maybe we want to talk about that stinger.
Yeah, of course.
So we get a quick stinger at mid-credit sequence, and the shot opens up on the pager, Nick Fury's pager, that at this point has been dropped by Nick Fury after the snapping in Infinity War, and the remaining Avengers, Cap, Black Widow, War Machine, Rhodey is there, and they notice that the pager, its light and display goes out, and I was going to say Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow. I get her names okay. So Black Widow says she wants to know the source of that signal, why it went out. She wants to know who it was calling or whatever. And immediately the camera pans over and Captain Marvel is standing there. So, and she says, "Where's Fury?" I mean, I gotta tell you, I haven't seen any of the. I haven't watched. You all know I haven't watched any of the in-game trailer teasers or whatever. I've been staying away from all that. Haven't been reading anything about it. But man, when she said, "Where's Fury?" and then it cut to black, I got fucking super excited. Not that I wasn't. And the thing is, going into even before seeing Captain Marvel, speculating on her involvement in Endgame, I'm thinking, okay, how is she gonna fit into the film? I know Marvel will figure it out.
But dynamic wise,
but also like motivationally, like when people are speculating that she's gonna be, because she's the most powerful in the MCU, she's gonna be the one to defeat Thanos, and so I'm thinking initially, and this is like early on, I'm thinking, well, with everyone else, we have like multiple films with all these Avengers, so I could see, and with Tony's history with going all the way back to the first Avenger film, his stint in space briefly, and how that affected him and his vision in Age of Ultron, and what he saw as a potential future and what happened and his responsibility in that. So I was like, all right, well, it would make sense if Tony is the one if that happens, Tony's the one to defeat Thanos. Or I could see like if Cap, because if something happens, I saw all these other personal investments because I've had time with all these other characters, right? So I'm like, if they bring in Captain Marvel, if she's the one to defeat him, how is that gonna make sense when all these other characters have a more storied history, that as far as motivation wise? But after seeing the film of Captain Marvel and buying into the relationship of her and Fury's, her anger at where's Fury, like where's my friend? And so I'm like, oh shit, okay, so now if she's the one, I buy it, because if you're the one responsible for snapping him away, I'm gonna fuck you up. And so like I buy it now.
I don't want to do too much speculation, but I think Avengers Endgame is going to have less to do with taking down Thanos than we think.
You do?
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't think the main threat is going to be we got to get rid of Thanos.
You know?
No.
Okay. Agree to disagree. I don't think he's gonna die. I mean,
No.
defeat him, yes, but because I think they'd be smart to keep him around for like future
for sure.
movies.
That's definitely happening.
So I feel like that should happen. But as far as like,
I think there's
beating
something
him,
else that's got to go down.
like what?
I'm not. This is Captain Marvel Reviewcast.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Any closing thoughts about the film, Brian?
No, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, definitely, it's great to at least get this origin so that we can be prepared for what she's going to bring in the next film. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Where would everybody put this in with their MCU rankings? We got to do that.
I don't have an MCU
I don't do
ranking.
There's 21. You can say top, middle, bottom.
I haven't ranked it yet.
Yes, you have, motherfucker. Tell the truth.
It's in the lower tier for me. Yeah.
I'd say middle.
I'd say solid middle.
Yeah, solid middle.
I haven't ranked that. I don't know. It might be in the bottom. I don't know.
I like, to me, like right now, you might feel like it's in the bottom. You might feel like it's solid middle, but we've only just met this character.
Yeah.
Whatever she does after this, if Marvel keeps up the good work, right? She's only going to become elevated, just like all of the other heroes have been elevated.
Yeah.
Well, before we go though, Brian, you've been a little quiet, so it sounds like you didn't like it that much.
I was a bit underwhelmed.
Yeah, and why exactly?
To me, it just didn't feel like it had that punch that I wanted to have to it. I think it was more so the direction of the film. I mean, I'm rooting for the film, and I like that it's doing well, but it just didn't have that. I think it was just more so the direction of it. Like when you see directors that come into the fold, someone like the Russo brothers when Winter Soldier, you're thinking. I'm thinking to myself like, wow, like that movie, like it makes its mark, but this one just, I don't know, it felt like there was a blandness as far as just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say exactly,
Sure.
but
Fair enough.
yeah,
I think what's interesting is it's the first Marvel movie I've ever seen where it goes handheld during conversations, and I thought that was really, really interesting. That sequence where Carol and Maria confront each other.
Yeah.
In like outside.
Yeah.
Suddenly we go handheld, and the camera is like floating in with them. That was like shocking to me.
Yeah. And the Tesseract thing, I talked to Darren about this. I'm confused.
I'm confused as fuck.
Why?
I'm confused because the Tesseract was in Captain America, so I thought it was underwater. So
No. Howard Stark got it. Remember, at the end of the first Avenger, the Howard Stark sends this. The ship out. The ship finds it with a submersible.
See, I told you.
They pull the cosmic cube out, or the Tesseract out. So Howard had it, and when Dr. Wendy Lawson was doing her light engine experiments, she knew that as a Kree, she traced the energy level to Earth, and who had it? Stark Industries had it. So at some point she gets it from Stark.
Okay, because I was trying to think. I thought it was underwater all the way up until Avengers. 'Cause I remember when Nick Fury was talking to Cap, he said he should have left it buried
in the ice.
where you found.
Yeah, but you see Howard at the end of First Avengers get it.
Okay. I missed that. All right, because I was like, why is the Tesseract?
You're just not watching close enough, Brian.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
You didn't do your rewatch this time.
I didn't.
Did you?
No.
Oh.
I just have them all memorized.
Oh, okay. All right. Hit us up on social media and let us know what you thought of Captain Marvel.
I loved it. I feel like I liked it the most.
I mean, I gave it 4 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed it. What I'm saying is I gave it 4 stars, and it's number 10 in my ranking. There's just 9 other movies that I love more than this one. Yeah. I was surprised at how engaged with her story was. I agree that there are some direction issues. I think there are some script issues. There's some dialogue issues. But structure-wise, character-wise, emotion-wise, I am all in on Captain Marvel. And I think it's like Captain America: The First Avenger, where I left going, that was pretty good, and it's only going to get better on rewatches.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
I think Avengers Endgame and Captain Marvel 2, as her character gets more and more developed over the course of more films, this film will only become more and more significant in the rewatches. I think it's way better than things like Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's better than Doctor Strange.
Right.
I think it's better than 90% of the Phase 1 movies.
Brad and I saw it twice in 2 days, which is not unusual for us with these MCU films. But I just loved going into this film a second time, anticipating all of those things I loved so much the first time.
And I liked it way more on the second watch, especially like I was saying, with the structure and now being able to see what actually happens in those first shots.
So I have only seen it once, so I'm going to go see it again. Zach, when he gets back in town, he wants to go see it, so I'll take him to go see it. So hopefully I'll enjoy it more at that time. I can't say that I was underwhelmed. Like, well,
you were just
I didn't have any. I really didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to go in and see a Marvel movie. I was excited for that. But it was, like you said, and like I said earlier, I had issues with the script and the directing. But hopefully on rewatch, I will be able to find other things that I like and enjoy.
What I appreciated about it most was that it presented the female experience in the workplace in a superhero film. And I just found it so satisfying. I just did.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I was moved.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know what you thought at ItModcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Brian, what are you looking forward to this week? Nothing.
No, not really.
God
Probably
damn it.
Watching Ip Man. So Ip Man.
What?
Yeah, Captive State.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you going to go see that? I'm looking forward to that, actually.
That doesn't. I don't know. That
I like
movie-
the first trailer a lot. Second trailer was sort of more of the same.
Yeah.
I like Rupert Wyatt. I mean, I like Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, so we'll see what we have. What he has. Yeah.
Okay, Wife Dork. Oh, sorry. You can follow that guy at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork.
Yes, I am looking forward to Queer Eye. Season 3 is coming out on the 15th. Super stoked. I've missed my boys. I've missed Tan. I haven't been missing Jonathan Van Ness because I listen to his podcast, Getting Curious, and it's amazing. And I miss Bobby, and I miss Anthony, and I look forward to the warm fuzzies that always happen with Queer Eye, because Queer Eye is all about creating positivity through connection, and I just love it.
When that drops, are they dropping the entire season?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish they didn't, because I have no restraint, and I will just watch the entire season twice in a row, just from top to bottom.
You can't pace yourself?
I cannot. And right now, Star Trek Discovery is like back to back. We've had 2 amazing episodes. You remember my week in Dork?
Yep.
Like I was having some reservations. Some of those reservations continue to exist.
Oh.
But the past 2 episodes have been so good.
Okay.
I can't believe we're already like halfway through the season.
Yep.
And they don't put that one out like
No, and I love the anticipation of waiting for the episodes to come out. Makes me feel old school.
Okay. You can find her at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, at Sidewalk Siren on Instagram. She's also at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram. And she is at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
B, what are you looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to our next ItMod Chatcast, which drops on Wednesday. Billy and I spoke to director Robert D. Kraskowski of The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. And we had a long conversation with him at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester.
Did you see that movie?
Yeah.
It's good?
Yeah, it's good. I liked it.
Okay.
It's not what you think it is, which is what's so interesting about it.
Really?
Yeah. It's all in the title, but maybe not the tone is in the title.
Oh.
I highly recommend watching that film. You can rent it right now before listening to our conversation. And if you're an ItMod listener, guys, you got to jump on over to another channel, the ItMod Chatcast channel, and subscribe to that, rate, like, review.
Yes.
Podcast so nice. Subscribe to us twice.
Yay. You can follow that guy at MouthDork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Also Untapped. I am looking forward to Triple Frontier. I'm looking forward to Captive State. And I'm looking forward to seeing Perfect Blue on the big screen.
Oh, yeah, that's
Alamo
Wednesday.
Drafthouse. Yeah. You can follow me at the Turtle Dork. Sorry. You can follow me at the Disco Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. We have in honor of Captive State, we have we have a fistful of states. Did we decide on states?
Yeah, we did.
All right, we got a fistful of states. So, stay tuned for that. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.